So there's a thin line. It's not that you're losing your entire identity in itself. The identity that you had with them is going to, change in your life.
So I think a lot of us wants to stay friends with ex immediately after the breakup. It's not just the death of relationship, but that of the future that you planned with
Yes.
them.
That is if there is a third person involved in the picture taking care of them, giving them validation, acknowledgement, everything. But if there is no third person, then how does such a person move on?
Right? So this fake it till you make it will help you to some extent, but not completely to move on.
Do you as a psychologist think that after disappearing for so many years, did Bunny really deserve Naina?
No. Clinically, I would say no. Hello everybody, welcome back to another podcast. My name is Vandana and I have with me Tanishka and Prathana. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I get a lot of my clients for, and when it comes to relationship, this particular topic is always going to exist, which is breakup. So today we're going to discuss about why breakup happens, how do we move on from breakups, and a couple of interesting insights and questions that Prathana and Tanishka have curated by asking to a lot of people. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, and if at all you have more questions, then you can put them down in the comments below.
My first question would be, how much of heartbreak is about losing the person and how much is it about losing the version that you had with that person?
It's a very interesting question when I saw it for the first time as well, because it's so deep in nature. So when we get into a relationship, what happens is that there is a part of us that we give into that relationship, and there's a part of them that comes to the relationship, right? So you create a unique identity for yourself when you are in that relationship. So you have your own schedules, your own inside jokes, and a lot of other small things that we often take for granted, right? And when that thing ends, so it's like one version of you is in that relationship that has ended, even though you might have moved on, or even though you might be really missing that particular person, but that identity is always going to be with the other person. So there's a thin line. It's not that you're losing your entire identity in itself. The identity that you had with them is going to, change in your life. So suppose you discovered in that relationship that you're a funny person, or you like to travel, or you are a person who loves maybe board games. You discovered that when you were with that person, and now when the relationship has ended, somewhere you question those identities that you built with them. And then you're like, do I really like that, or did I like it because I was with that person? So you question in those lines. And after one point, you realize that maybe no, I did like it, and this person helped me tap into that part of my identity. So that transition takes some time, but yes, there is this one identity that you developed with them that gets a little bit shaken when you end that particular relationship. What are your insights about it?
I feel like you kind of miss yourself, the version that you had with that person a lot than the person itself. Because when you get the other sources where you can be or play that version of yourself with other people, you kind of feel relieved, you kind of feel okay, and you kind of move on from the situation.
Yeah, and you might
Yeah.
little bit miss them,
Yeah.
but then you feel that sense of, okay, I had a good time
Yeah.
today, but I
Yeah.
did miss that person.
Yeah.
So that will be there for some time, but then later on, it kind of becomes part of who you are, right? So yeah.
This happens a lot with music, where you associate certain music with them, and then once you break up, that music starts to bother you, and you're like, did I genuinely like this music, or was it because of them that I listened to it?
Yeah.
And then maybe you stop listening to those songs or that genre of music because you associate it with them.
Yeah.
So this happens a lot. And what I would like to ask you is, let's say there is a genre of music I liked before I met that person, but when I met them, I associated with them. And throughout the relationship, it was our thing. Now that we've had a breakup, how do you separate that part of it and, have it this way that the music does not bother you, but it goes back to being your own thing and not with them?
So this is a little tricky thing to address, because see, you might say, for example, like Taylor Swift songs, for example, okay? So before, you didn't have any association to Taylor Swift songs. But then once this person came, now that entire song kind of resonated. Oh, this person has come into my life. So that's why I resonate to this particular song. And now when this person leaves, you're like, every lyrics, everything is of this person. So you might either listen to it in loop when you're missing that person a lot. Or like you said, you might suddenly feel like, oh my God, I don't like this person at all. I want to like stop listening to this particular genre of music. So when you can come back to it is dependent on how much you have given value and importance to that person in association to this song.
Okay.
Suppose there, for example, Love Story. That was the first song that I heard as well of Taylor Swift. So when you hear that particular song and every single lyrics, every single thing has some sort of memory with the other person, that song becomes very difficult to listen to. Versus some other songs wherein you might have heard it once together and you might have liked it. That is it. There is no much memory or too much of reading into the lyrics, nothing. So that particular person's song you can still listen to. But the ones that you've put in a lot of meaning to, that takes a lot of time to, of course, come out of it. But it depends. Now, say you move on from that particular person, you find another one, and they also like the song, and you create new memories with that person. Then maybe that song you can again listen to. It depends on how much meaning you've put to that song with that person. So that's how it is.
I also think it's not just about the songs and all the activities that we did with that particular person. And one way that one of my friend came out of this was she started creating new memories with that. Like if she heard this particular song with her ex or so, then she would start listening with us. She would make crazy memories. Like she would dance, jump, and if she was going to play badminton with him, then she would start going with us. She would just completely make new memory out of those places that she hung out with her ex-boyfriend, and then it became easier for her to disassociate the place with the person.
Correct. So that is often the thing that we often tell to our clients when they are in that phase of, okay, I really want to get out of it. Right? Not during the grieving stage. Grieving stage, you tell anything, they're not going to come. So when you've decided ki chalo, I really want to like fix this particular thing, and somehow, you've realized that, okay, this person has moved on, or you no longer want to be in such stage. So that this is one of the best ways to, move on, wherein you create newer memories. Because what happens is when the breakup happens, you're kind of frozen.
Yeah.
Right? You're only oscillating between the past and the future that you had with that person. So you're not living in the present. So you're like kind of frozen. So to unfreeze is when you focus a lot on the present, when you do all of those new activities with other people. So that's a wonderful way to move ahead in a relationship after it's over.
So I have this one friend who has been in a toxic relationship, and for many reasons, it is very unhealthy for her to go back. But still, she can't stop herself from going back, regardless of however toxic it was and how unhealthy she felt in that relationship. So why is it, and how do you fix something like this?
So the thing is, it's not about the toxicity or anything that, makes the person come back. The reason why they come back is because it's like a challenge. Right? Now say somebody has said a no to you. So you're like, why did they say no?
Yeah.
Or, in case of toxic relationship, maybe they've not said a no, they have been extremely bad to the other person. So you end up thinking that maybe if I fix this about me or about this relationship, maybe this will work. It's not he problem or she problem, it's maybe us problem. We need to really work on certain things. Because somewhere some people don't like rejection. They cannot take that. Or it could be things like perfectionism, like it has to work a certain way. So if it doesn't work a certain way, somewhere in you feel like something is wrong, I have to fix it. So that you get a more dopamine rush sometimes when you know that, okay, it's a little uncertain. The idea of maybe you getting it or maybe the relationship is going to work actually gives you more dopamine. So that is the reason sometimes, you go back to it. I know everybody will say, why are you going behind this person? He is obviously wrong to you, or she's obviously wrong to you. Why are you still so attracted to them? So that hope is one thing that makes them attracted, and you get a dopamine rush for something that is challenging, something. Imagine they'll tell you, what if that person becomes better? And I stayed with him, I stuck with them. And I was probably the reason why, they changed. So that high,
I made this relationship work.
yeah, so that high, the anticipation that that's going to happen will make them want to go back to them.
Also, like, this thing is another thing that where a person might have rejected and want the validation that no, I can make it work. But there are also cases where it kind of works. Both of them are in relationship, and it's still very toxic. And still, somehow, the person is very aware that it is very toxic and is unable to get out of it. So-
Comfort is another reason. So now, for example, now we all are in Bangalore now. So
Hmm.
we're very comfortable being in Bangalore, even though, say, for example, there might be another country or another city that can offer us a better opportunity. We still try to, convince ourselves that no, Bangalore is probably very nice because we've been here for a long time, right? Of course, there are a lot of us who might take the other opportunity also, but initially the response is no. After a lot of pro-con analysis, after a lot of us, discussing and seeing the opportunity is when you decide. But there's always going to be that resistance. So that comfort is also one thing. And the other thing is a lot of them fear the beginning of any relationship because they have to do the small talks again, express everything again. So they're like, okay, I don't want to do this. At least this person is a known devil,
Familiarity.
right? So at least I'll be with them. I know that these are his flaws or her flaws, and we're going to work on it. And I'm now used to it. So that is also one factor wherein you're so tired to go and start again. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to be with this person. So yeah, that is also one of the reasons why they end up, being with a toxic person.
Then how can someone come out of that loop? Like, what are the ways?
So what are the ways is again, like how I said, when you have to go to another city, we do a lot of decision making, right? So first thing is, okay, what is the toxicity in this particular relationship? Is it this person not treating them with respect? Is it affairs? Is it what? There are so many different, things that can affect a person. So depending on that, say if they're disrespecting them and they're still being there, then we work on their identity. Like, has anybody given you respect? What does it feel like to be, respected? What does it feel like to be in that situation which is opposite to what they are living in? Then slowly exposing them to that they can also get it. It is not necessary that we need to be in such kind of a relationship. So a lot of such kind of methods we use to understand, and then they move out of it. So it depends on what exactly is making them hold on to that particular relationship. Based on that, we work.
So I think lot of us wants to stay friends with ex
Mm.
immediately after the breakup. So what do you think, is staying friends with ex is just delay in healing, or is it healthy?
So this particular situation, it depends on what kind of relationship you have had. Suppose you've had a very intense relationship with this person, and then you say, okay, let's be friends. It's basically, as you said, we are kind of delaying that hit on us, one. And also we are in that hope that, okay, when we are friends, it means we can speak still. We can, show that, okay, see, I know you so well. I'm so caring. I'm so considerate. So you're more present in their life. The more present you are in their life, you feel like the chances of them coming back with us is higher. So that's why a lot of them propose, okay, let's be friends. Let's not end on a bad note. So it's two things. One is you're delaying that particular breakup and also giving that hope that, okay, chalo, let's come back. So that's one of the reasons why people, at least in the initial days of breakup, they suggest this. But on a contrary, you can be friends with your ex. But it depends if you have moved on, if you have found another partner. Is your partner comfortable with you being friends with this ex? And there's also some boundaries, right? Like because with an ex, the problem is you know each other. There's a lot of familiarity. There's a lot of emotional connection that has happened over there. So now sometimes it's easier to talk to them, right? Because you know them so well. So it depends on to what are all the things that you would want to still discuss with them. Would you discuss about your partner's private conversations with them? So that will be a problem to your partner, obviously. So that boundary aspect of it is very important when it comes to the friendship with an ex. But if it is very platonic, like, hi, hello, how are you? What's up? What's happening in your life? And just checking up, that's very, it's not harmful and it's very clean.
Yeah.
Right? So that can come at the later stages when you have finally moved on and you see them as a good friend or somebody from your past who did teach you a lot, who did hurt you a lot, but still you're okay with their presence. So that is a good state to be friends. But at the initial stage when you're broken up, that's just you delaying it. Like, you're going to meet them often. It's just going to remind you more about the relationship than make you feel like, okay, this is a breakup.
And maybe like on in the initial stages, if you are being friends with your ex, it's mostly because you want to prove that you're still a better partner. You
Hmm.
constantly want to prove yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that familiarity, right? So you
Yeah.
say, no, I'm still your friend, it's okay. So there'll be a lot of people who'll be like, yeah, you can date other people, I can help you out in that particular process. But they're just trying to show that, you know what, you can find everybody, but I am the right person for you. So that is the reason you want to be with them.
Yeah.
So it's a very dangerous line. Whenever you hear your ex or somebody say this, you're like, okay, maybe they want to still be in your life and are not ready to, like, let you go.
So I have to ask you this. How long does it actually take for you to move on from a person?
Ha. This is the question a lot of my clients also ask. Like,
Okay.
how long will this take? Some of them, they have this measurement. Okay, 1 year I have, been like I have broken up with this person. I've been single.
Huh.
Still, I'm not moving on. Bye. It's not like in 1 year you can, like move on. Or in some cases they compare. Like my friend could easily find love in 6 months. Why am I still? It's been like 8 months. I've still not moved on. So
Huh.
there is no like comparison or a proper time scale that okay, this much time. It's similar to falling in love, right?
Yeah.
So can you say that okay, in 8 weeks I can fall in love with this person? Not really,
No.
right? It takes time. Sometimes you might take like years to realize that okay, maybe you like this person more than a friend, right? So there is no timeline as such, but in simpler terms, what I would say is that when you look at that person's photo or when you think of the person's memories, it doesn't, hold that harsh feeling or the deep
Right.
feeling in your heart that the
Yeah.
clench is not there anymore. So that's one of the signs that okay, I'm moving on. And the other thing is when you genuinely see them as a friend or maybe as an acquaintance, if they're doing good in life or maybe they're getting married or they're dating somebody, you're not jealous. Little bit you will be, you're a human being, but it's more to do with okay, I'm happy for them and you're genuinely happy for them. You're not like I hate that guy. You're not like that. You're genuinely happy for the other person. So that is one more sign. And the other thing is wherein you're able to look at others and think about romantic relationship. You're not still thinking about that person. If somebody's asking you out on a date, you're happy to go on a date. You're not like, okay, I'm cheating on her or him. You're not in that stage anymore. And another thing that makes you feel like, okay, I've moved on is when you're talking about it without being too emotional.
Okay.
Or sometimes what happens is, people talk about it very like casually, but after they talk about it, they go home and they cry and they be sad or they drink alcohol or they are very, very like, in vulnerable state. But if you're able to talk about your ex and after you go back, you're fine. There's no that vulnerability, no that emotional thing. That's also another sign of moving on. So these are some surface level signs of moving on. Deeper level is when you're able to, form healthier relationship with other people without, feeling that guilt or sadness or any of those emotions.
So there's no timeline as such ki within 3 months. It can be anything. It can be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years,
Yeah.
10 years also.
Yeah, it depends on how much you were involved with that person. So one more reason why people find it difficult to move on is because you have thought a lot about your future. So suppose you might have dated somebody for just 2 to 3 months, okay, but you have planned your entire future with them. That time it's difficult to move on. Why? Because nobody addresses the future that you've anticipated with them. Say, every Diwali I'll celebrate with you, or this particular year we will go to this particular destination. So much of future you've planned, and then the future is happening. Like after the breakup, these things are happening. Nobody acknowledges that, right? So that's why it's harder for them because they've invested a lot into it. They have put in a lot of their time, effort, expectations, everything. So that time it becomes extremely difficult to move on. So that's why people who have been in relationship for like 8 years, 9 years, sometimes if they're too involved in it, it becomes difficult for them to come out of it because there's a whole life that they've dealt with that person.
Correct.
So that time it's tougher.
It's not just the death of relationship, but death of the future that you planned with
Yes.
them. And
Correct.
it
Very
makes it
nicely
difficult.
put. Yes.
Yeah. And one more thing about grieving is that some people just like to stay there. Like I feel like some people just are there and they don't want to take that one step ahead, which can like make them move on because I don't know, they feel very comfortable in that place.
Yeah.
So then how do they move on?
So it's more like, see, you liked somebody, you've been together, you had an identity, you had a relationship, you had future, you had plans, you liked it. Now it ended. So now you're scared. Like, again, I have to do the whole thing. Again, if that person leaves me and goes, I can't handle it again.
Uncertainty.
Right? So you're like, let me just be in this particular situation, let me just deal with it. It's okay. At least this was known. Again, it comes to that familiarity ground. Right? And after one point wherein you start missing that, feeling of, or somebody calling you pretty, or planning things together, or when you see your friends, everybody, going out with their partners, you feel that angst sometimes. And then you might slowly try again. But that will take its own time. Like, if at all they feel like, no, I don't want to date anybody, and that feeling is very strong, then it takes some time for them to come out of it. So it depends again on the intensity, what has hurt them so much. Sometimes this cheating, when it happens, it hurts them a lot. So that time they stay.
Self-esteem.
Yeah, so their identity, everything takes a hit. So once you slowly work on the identity and you say that maybe it's not your fault at all, why that person did what they did. And they get that validation, they get that acknowledgement, and somebody, actually holds on to them, gives them that respect, is when they move on from there.
That is, if there is a third person involved in the picture taking care of them, giving them validation, acknowledgement, everything. But if there is no third person, then how does such a person move on? Like, so they're used to getting validation and acknowledgement from a person,
Hmm.
and now that person is not there. So how does that person move on?
So right before the podcast, she was talking about one interesting concept about, how we need different people in our life to help us out with different aspects of life. If we put a lot of pressure on one single person, if that person diminishes or ceases to exist in our life, it feels like we're alone in an empty room. So now, say for example, if you want to eat chaat, you have a friend with whom you can do that. Or say you want to go on travel tours, you have another friend who can help you to do it. So when you have different things that you like associated with different people, it helps you to, disassociate from that one person who can do everything, and you know that, okay, there are multiple other people in your life who can help you with it. So that's the best way for it.
That is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes we tend to hold on to the person, or we don't move because we have this thought in our head, yaar, banda to sahi tha, but it was a wrong time. They say right person, wrong time. So how far do you think is this concept right? Right person, wrong time.
It is sometimes pretty accurate. Maybe you met a person during your college days, and maybe they're not settled, or you're not settled, you're not happy, or your family is probably against it, or you are confused about this relationship. And then after a couple of years, you realize that, oh, maybe this person is actually good for me. So it depends, like every year, your expectations, your needs, your wants keeps changing in a relationship. So maybe the years that you were dating, what you needed and what you got was not right. And that was maybe the reason why you broke up. But then later on, when you think about it, your wants and needs would have matched when you're thinking about this person. Oh, that guy did all those things at that point of time. So I wish, we were dating right now. So that is a possibility to definitely happen. But also in this day and age wherein we have so many choices and we are constantly, dating different people. So we always feel the one that we lost as, oh, this choice was actually better. Why did I leave that choice? So that also tends to happen nowadays in the modern world of dating. We feel confused at times. Like, we are with somebody who's really good, but then we're like, what if I get somebody else better? And when we go, we find somebody, but then we realize that that particular situation, they were not good. So we tend to convince ourselves that, okay, yeah, maybe that guy was better. Why did I choose this guy? So end of the day, you don't want to sometimes hurt yourself or take that responsibility that I made a wrong decision. So that's why you tend to like ruminate and think about such kind of things to protect yourself at times.
Also, the relationship didn't work out at that moment because of something, and that because of something is a proof, I guess, that he was not a right person at this moment, and you can never know if he will be a right person in future as well.
See, there's no right, wrong, okay?
Yeah.
Like certain times, see, when you are young, at time. It's not just a matter of age, but in certain situations, like say it could be challenges to do with money. Maybe in the beginning of your career, money played a very important role in determining if you want to be with this person or not. And at that moment, whatever problems came, somewhere it revolved around the money, and that is the reason maybe you were not able to fix that relationship. But say after a few years, you feel like, okay, money is important, but also the person needs to be empathetic and take care of me as a person. Like maybe you fell ill and maybe you want somebody to be more empathetic rather than a person who wants money. And then your priorities shift. So what you look for in the relationship also shifts. And at times, two people, if they're ready to see through these shifts, then they work. But if they feel like, no, I don't have the patience, or maybe this is not working out, this is not what I want to be in, is when you leave. So it depends on where you're at in your life, what are your priorities, what is important to you, how much would you want to put in efforts to work in this relationship at present, is what will determine that.
But this mentality or this mindset that right person, wrong time wouldn't let that person to move on, I feel. Because, yeah, you're
It depends
still,
when they're thinking about it, no?
this happens, I feel this mostly happens during the breakup, that you feel like breakup हो रहा because of something. अगर maybe ये situation नहीं exist करती, तो it would have worked.
So, जैसे कि what example do you feel? Like, is it like, say, family not accepting? Or say, long distance हो गया?
Yeah, examples like that, or maybe I want to focus on my work, or this is not the right time for a relationship, and someone breaks up. Then you feel like, oh, maybe he wanted to focus on his work, that's why this relationship didn't work, or the timing was not right. If at all he was settled and we met, then maybe it would be the best relationship. So these kind of thoughts don't let you move on.
Yeah, they're basically protecting you again, end of the day. Like, okay, this is the reason why we didn't move on. Why we didn't work. So, that is what it is. But that hypothetical situation is not there. So, until that hypothetical situation comes, we don't know for sure whether it is going to work or not. Say, even if it's settled, still there could be compatibility issues. Still, you might feel like, no, maybe this person doesn't understand me the way. Or that person can also feel that, okay, I didn't want to be with this person, so maybe I told it as a reason. So you never know why something didn't work. Maybe this is just a way to protect, cushion your feelings.
Also, because you were never really into that relationship or something, you have idealized version in your head that it would be so good, so great and everything. Only this is the wrong thing that is not letting us live all of those moments. So it makes it very harder to move on. They say that the story that has never got a chance to live is harder to move on than the story that has gotten a chance and then the breakup has happened.
Correct. Because, when dopamine hits is when you're anticipating a reward, not when you got a reward. So for sure, there is an anticipation that, okay, maybe it would have worked. So that is why it feels like a very interesting story. And this story has no end, right? It has multiple versions, multiple parts, and you are the writer. So you can write it however you want. And obviously, you're going to write all the good versions, as if you're going to write the bad versions.
Yeah.
If you were writing the bad versions, then you would never be in this situation. Right? So it's whenever a story is incomplete, always, that's why we use terms like closure, why we ended. All of these things is for that reason only, because otherwise we'll tend to write a lot of million different stories to it. But nobody sits and accepts that, okay, this was the end. There is no other thing or no other continuation. It's our mind that kind of works on it because we are not okay with the end. That is the reason we are writing different stories.
So this thing that you mentioned where our brain likes incomplete things, there is a reel on this on the page, and it's called, in psychology, this concept is called the Zeigarnik effect.
Yeah.
So it's like when a story is unfinished, your brain is attached to it thinking what the ending might have been, and that is what keeps you hooked.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's what even Netflix and everybody uses it.
Yeah.
So they drop it. So whenever an episode ends, it is at a cliffhanger. So you're like, what is going to happen next? So you
Open to
saw this
interpretation.
thing, so you go into it. And that's why part 1 and part 2 movies work very well, because after a part 1, they leave it at a cliffhanger. So you are all talking about that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, this happened, that happened, what will happen? And once they do the conclusion, you forget about the movie. You don't even talk about it. So that is the thing there.
So there is this famous line from Taylor Swift's song which says "Fake it till you make it," and all of the Gen Zs seem to follow that, and I don't know how true it is like fake it till you make it, just gaslighting yourself that you're moving on. Are we actually processing emotions, or does it really help?
So again, this is a very tricky kind of a question because it can work also in some cases. In some cases, it doesn't. It can show up in different ways. Okay. So when we say fake it in a moving on state, what would it be?
It would just be like, oh, I've moved on, I don't feel anything.
Mm.
Just faking it that it didn't affect you at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
So initially, it can help you for sure because everybody is like, wow, okay, that's amazing. Come on, I'll give you somebody's number, go speak to them and everything. But then when you're with that person, say you're distracted, you're thinking about your ex, or you are only talking about your ex. So it comes out in different way. It leaks out from your body. So, we cannot really fake as humans. Yes, we do try a lot, and some of them to some extent do succeed. But after one point, when you are pushed to your limits, you cannot fake it anymore. You will come to your original version because you will only be acting. Like that acting phase, you can do for some extent extremely well. You might get success, you might be very, very good at it. But end of the day, when you go back home, say you marry this person whom you faked it with, then how long can you do?
Correct.
Right? So this fake it till you make it will help you to some extent, but not completely to move on. Completely to move on is a slow process wherein you deal with the emotions, when you try to understand what version of you were you in that particular relationship. And healing doesn't come from just forgetting that relationship. It also comes from, understanding who were you, how were you before this person came into your life, what are the new things that you have incorporated. Are you okay to, remove some of it from your life? Are you okay to have some of it in your life? So moving on happens not just forgetting the person. It is in stages. All of these things are packaged together in it. So that you can't fake for a longer time. So unfortunately, that some people it works. If they meet the right person faking and then it's a healthy relationship, they're able to move on. But if you don't meet the right person, then you're just going to, put in the past emotions to the new person and you're in one toxic loop.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
what
doesn't
even I was about to say, that even if you get succeeded, fake it till you make it, your patterns or the things that you had to learn and unlearn from the past relationships will never happen if you have not processed things.
Yeah.
And that will somehow show up in your future relationships, and things will get more worse.
Yeah, that is there. That is what happens. So anything, anywhere in life, like even if, say you really wanted to get first rank and you didn't get first rank, everybody says chalega, but you dreamt about it, right? So what did that dream matter to you? Why was it a pushing factor to you? And then slowly realizing that, okay, maybe second is also not a bad thing. So it's like in layers you go ahead. So same with your moving on as
Right.
well. Or even that particular fake it till you make it. Why are you thinking that faking it will help you to move on? What are you hiding? And this fakeness, what is the identity of this fakeness? So all these things we need to decode to finally understand why it is working for them or why is it not working for them end of the day. And most of the time it will not work for them. Nobody has faked it and made it work, at least in a relationship. Maybe confidence you can fake it, but not emotional things beyond one point.
So we've all seen YJHD and we all know how the dynamic worked there. Do you as a psychologist think that after disappearing for so many years, did Bunny really deserve Nana?
No.
No?
Clinically, I would say no.
Okay.
Because, so see, both of them had very different attachment styles. So basically, Bunny's is a very avoidant attachment style. So
Clearly.
he felt that, okay, she's going to go away permanently. So because of that fear, he came back to her. He didn't come back to her for her. Or, like exploring this relationship with her, or let's travel together and then see if we will work out or not. He directly proposed, okay, will you marry me?
Yeah.
Is because he was really afraid. So that's not a healthy sign to come back to in a relationship. And Nana also, like, why she chose him? That is another question, right? So maybe
Yes.
she dated other people and she was not able to move on. We were talking about it, right? Like, why do people come back to others? So maybe she dated other people and she liked the idea of Bunny that she met like that 8 years ago, and she felt that he's going to be the same. And that version of him is what I really liked. And I want the same version after 8 years also, right? So maybe that is why she accepted. And also we need to understand like what is her attachment style,
Yeah.
right? Is she like someone who is secured or someone who is maybe anxious too? That okay, this guy has come now, he's asking me, let me just say yes right now before he runs away again. So that could also be another reason. But if you ask me, no, I don't think, both of them deserve each other. Maybe they could have found other people with whom they could have built organic relationship. But for the movie's sake, it was nice.
I feel like the reason also Nana also was okay with his proposal, and she was, because the version of herself that she discovered with him was something else, and she
Yeah.
liked that version of
Yeah.
herself. She liked how open he made her feel, how free he made her feel, and all of those scenes where she's realizing her identity and liking what she's
Mhm.
becoming. That is also one of the reasons why she was,
100%.
like, "ठीक है, okay, it's fine."
Yeah.
Even though there might be things that she did not like about him, but the identity that he gave her, or the identity that she discovered through him, was something that made her
Maybe.
be
Yeah.
okay with
For
it.
sure. Like we were discussing the versions that we have with our
Yes.
people, right? So maybe this version was something that made her successful, made her open up, made her meet a lot of people. So that's why that gratitude could also be there. But we don't know after they together, if he again leaves and goes, what is she going to do? But again, it's a very cliffhanger kind of a situation.
So the classic thing that we all do after breakup is stalking our ex, zooming in all the likes, comments that our ex has done, like an FBI agent. So how do you think that we can come out of this loop, and why do you think this happens?
Okay, why you think it happens is very interesting answer is because so we feel like there's a crime that is committed to us, right? Because of course that person has broken up with us and they have hurt us, and there is a lot of pain that we hold. So that is a crime. So we become these investigators because we want to know why this crime was committed to us, right? Like we stalk their likes, we stalk their things because we're like, okay, he's liking or she's liking this person's post. It means they are the reason for moving on, right? So that person is the reason why I am the victim today. So your brain wants to finish that particular crime scene with an investigation also as to why it happened. So that's why we end up stalking our ex and all a lot. And also it's more like our identity is challenged. Our entire, story got disrupted, right? So you feel very betrayed. Like, why did this happen to us? So that's why a lot of us end up, stalking our exes. And how do we move on from that? Is one thing I would say is often when we block our exes, it's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Because, the distance kind of helps you to, disassociate from that person. Now, if at all your ex is in front of your face every single day, so obviously when you look at that person, you're going to remember the smell of that person or how it was with that person. So you will never be able to, like remove that memories from your head. But suppose if that person is distant from you, not seen them for 10 days, of course you're going to miss them a lot. You crave them a lot. But at least, they're not there like a reminder in front of you in a physical format. So one of the ways is to stop, like block your ex. It's okay. It's a good thing if you're not aware about them. Maybe unblock them when you're fine. But unfortunately, Instagram has this feature when you unblock, you have to send them the follow request again. So that's also one more reason why people are scared to do it. But maybe you can hide them if you don't want to block
Restrict them.
them.
There is an option called
Yeah, you can restrict them or something so that you don't have access to them for some time. And you experience that, void without them in your life. That's a healthy void sometimes.
Yeah.
And another reason why we end up, stalking our exes is also because we want to compete with them, right? Like, have they found somebody better than me?
Yeah.
So it's like an ego boost. Suppose they found somebody that are not good. So you're like, I am much better. This person was a loser. Why did I even choose? It's again more to do with justifications to self. So our ego is pretty fragile. So we're just protecting ourselves, and stalking sometimes is the biggest protector at times, and also the biggest destroyer if at all. They're liking many girls' picture. You're like, yaar, this person is just liking pictures after picture after picture. What is this? Again, you justify to yourself saying that, okay, he's maybe a flirt. So it's again a lot of self-protection, nothing else.
Your sense of self and
Yeah.
yourself.
And you're justifying that, oh, good, I was not with them because
Also,
he's a
one
flirt.
of the reason could also be that to check कि इसने move on कर लिया है क्या, मेरा तो नहीं हुआ, इसका हो
Yeah.
गया है क्या?
Correct.
Yeah, and as you said, the competition, that if he is doing well, then why should I stay
Yeah.
behind?
Okay, so as a psychologist, what are some tips that you would give to people who are struggling to move on from relationships?
Okay, couple of them I would give them. So first, very superficial levels I'll give. Pehle,
Okay.
that is, drink enough water, not alcohol.
Okay.
That's first thing. And the second thing would be to, like ensure that you have a routine set in your life, because when we end up losing somebody, everything is lost, including routine, because it starts with that person and ends with that other person. So a lot of the times when you break up, you feel like, I don't know what to do with my day. So, set up a routine for yourself. It could be as simple as I'll wake up at 7 o'clock every single day. I'll maybe go to my work or go to college, and I'll have an activity in my life which is set by me, right? So, you do that particular thing. So, these two, I would say, in a very superficial level, first, let's do. The second thing that I would say, like in a little more deeper sense, is to sit with yourself, not on one single day and cry about it and feel like I've cried about it and let me move on. No, like I said, a breakup has a lot of layers to it, right? So the first layer is how this entire relationship began, your love story. The second is how are you as a person in that particular relationship? What was your identity like? Third, what was this identity giving you in return? Like say you realize that you are a multitasker. So what did multitasking give you? Maybe it boosted you in your career, or maybe you felt good about yourself. Great. So analyze that,
Okay.
right? And then you analyze how the future that you've had with that person, that you've discussed with the person. So that is also something that you need to grieve. Not just the past, but also the future. Right? So these are the 4 deeper layers that you need to grieve, and each of them takes its own time. And you will be oscillating like a ball. Like there are days you'll be completely fine and there are days you'll be completely wrecked. So you'll be okay to deal with that part of it, because this other person is pretty important in your life. That is the reason why you're going through all these things. Right? So that is something that's going to happen. And one thing that really helps a lot of them is writing, right? So you write your story or you write your version of that particular relationship every day for like even 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It helps because you're expressing all of those pent up emotions on a sheet of paper, and it's a physical evidence that you have gone through it, and these are your emotions, these are your feelings. So it's very important to do it. Often you lock all these things inside and you don't have an outlet. So writing or talking to somebody really helps. So these are certain things that I would say that you do in the initial stages of breakup. Later on, maybe open up to experiences slowly, like meeting people. Don't isolate yourself. Socialize. Slowly have those new memories, that what we were talking about, building those memories with other people. Like it will be extremely hard to move out of your house, but then maybe, be like, okay, one day I will do something and remaining 6 days I will be alone. Then you change it to 2 days I'll do something and 5 days I'll be alone. So that's basically the way in which you slowly move ahead.
So, you also mentioned that writing is a great way to take emotions out. But for people who don't write, I feel like an alternative could be audio or video journaling, or maybe artwork or something else that, because there are a lot of people who don't prefer writing. So, for them, what do you think of these as alternatives? Audio journaling, video journaling, and art, maybe?
So audio is the best
Okay.
alternative to writing.
Huh.
So why a lot of times say writing is because it's like your entire nervous system, it kind of has that calming down phase when you write or when you speak about it, right? So art, again, it becomes a little vague. It is helpful, no doubt about it, but if you really want to express all of your emotions, sometimes it's good to write or to speak.
Speak. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you said that some days it's extremely hard to follow your routine, move out of house and all of those stuff. One thing that helped me was I used to tell myself whenever I did something, I used to tell myself, oh, I'm so proud of myself that I did. And that helped as a reward to me every time I wanted to listen that from myself. So I used to push myself harder to go out, do stuff. And yeah, I think that's one thing that can help people. Also, one more question that I had.
can put pressure also.
Yeah, true. But
Because
kind
in a
of-
very vulnerable stage, right? Like in the initial stage. These all will work when you have that acceptance somewhere that, okay, this is something that it's not going to work. I need, after you've grieved for someone, hey, we feel like, okay, let me do this. This is my way of, motivating myself. But it works different for different people. Somebody else can feel the pressure that today I didn't do something that I am proud of, then maybe I'm not good enough.
And that can demotivate them too.
It depends how you
Depends
see it.
on how you are as a person and what is your self-talking language like. If you're a person who's always motivating yourself and you rewarding yourself feels good, then this is a great way. But say your self-talk to yourself is very negative. So at that point of time, if you don't do it, it can twist it.
Yeah, true.
So it is very, dependent on the person. But it's a good way.
Also, one more question that I had was, as you said, that the routine starts with that person and ends with that person. So sometimes it's kind of a void that you feel in the mornings and in the nights, even though you're following your routine and everything. Mornings and nights just feels different, and the void, the pain just hits different. So how do we navigate that? Like,
So see, why it hits you the most is because you're not doing anything.
no, even if you follow the routine, even if you're doing everything, you are so used to good morning message. You're so used to
Yeah.
attention in the morning and attention in the night. It was like a daily dose. And when it's withdrawn, so you feel that void, you feel that clench, that, oh, no one is there to check on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that is something, again, like I said, that person is not existing in your life. That void is going to be there, right? That pain is going to be there. But at least when you have something set, something to look forward to, you're eliminating a little bit of the pain, right? It is obviously going to be there for some time. Then maybe, slowly you can ask your mom or your dad or your sibling or somebody from your family or close friend to maybe just call you up and check up on you, the new memories you build. But initially, unfortunately, that void will be there. It's like a shock to you also, right? Like you never expected that these small things are important to you as a person, right? Like if you've not gone through a breakup, you will not understand that, oh, a good morning message is something so important.
Yeah.
So you end up understanding your identity as well. Like, okay, these are the things that is important to me. These are the things I value more, right? Sometimes you don't miss certain things about your ex because you didn't value that thing. You were like, I don't want that in my life. There are certain things you miss because those are values that are important to you as a person. So that void, for some time, it will be there, but then you learn to kind of navigate through it after some time. But that pain is, unfortunately, you have to somehow go through it. There is no like proper like steps that, okay, I do this, I can come out of it. No, unfortunately, that is not there. Okay, so it was very interesting to talk to the two of you about a concept which is very hard for a lot of them. And it was very interesting questions from the both of you. So looking forward for the next podcast to see what other new things that we're going to discuss about relationship. So thank you so much.
Thank you.